Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new World of New Biz. Literally, as I've started the webinar, one of my dogs, which sat underneath me, has just started hocking up, being sick. So I might make my introductions really quick. It's my old dog. So those of you that are regular know I have two dogs, a pug and a Frenchie. That pug is nearly 15 and is for some reason been being sick all morning, so joy. But anyway, to those of you that haven't been before, my name is Katie Street. I am not only the host for your webinar today, but also the founder of Street Agency. Really, we are a marketing agency for agencies. And today, on today's webinar, we're really going to focus on what you guys need to do to, I guess, develop better marketing and new business strategies to attract more clients than hopefully ever before in 2022. So we know we've had a fairly turbulent year or two. The world of attracting clients has changed massively. And in fact, I think, we have adapted fairly well to that. And of course, because we're talking about how to attract and win new clients, what I thought I'd do is bring two new clients of mine that we attracted this year. So we actually have the fantastic Tracey. So Tracey Barber not only has just been awarded the BD 100 #1 winner for her efforts in new business, and basically is now, I guess, voted to be the best person in the agency world at business development. So that's an accolade to hold, Tracey. But her job title is, let me get this right, head of brand at the Brooklyn Brothers, who had some immense growth last year. So Tracey, hello.
Hi, everyone.
And if you guys don't know Tracey, then obviously she can intro a little bit more about the Brooklyn Brothers, but they do some fantastic work and have quite a special approach to approaching how they win clients, which I think really represents how they work as well, which is something, practicing what we preach is something we'll definitely dig into today. Next up is the lovely Patrick. So Patrick, again, another fantastic client of ours, is joining us from the Smalls. Patrick, do you want to give a bit of an intro? So the Smalls definitely are very unique. So some of you may have heard of them already. Do you want to give a very quick 30 seconds on the Smalls and how you guys are a little bit different to other agencies maybe?
No problem. So we combine essentially a central agency, so creative, strategy, production, so producers, with a community of around 20,000 filmmakers, animators, illustrators in 150 countries around the world, who we partner with, and we can find basically the right person for the right job.
Amazing. It is so unique. And I think that, the fact that you guys work in a different way, again, niching is something that we can talk about, and there's lots of different ways that you can niche. And last but not least, I don't know if you all got my emails, but if you did, you'll know I'm keeping it in the family today because I'm not the only amazing salesperson in the Street family. I also have with me my little brother, who I'm incredibly proud of. He works at a company called User Testing. If you don't know them, the name says it all. They do, or they have software that enables you to do some very, very clever user testing to test anything from brand, products, website journeys, etc. Adam joined them when they were quite small. I think he was the 6th employee in the UK, but works in the EMEA sales team, so selling to really big brands like BT and I think Adidas and some very other cool brands. And has worked his way up to be one of the top performing salespeople, across the world. So hello, Adam. Do you want to just give, again, a very quick 2 minutes more maybe about your role, and then we'll map back to you, Tracey, because I feel like I didn't give you enough of a voice there.
I think it's amazing how me and Katie have never been on a webinar together after. We always talk about how we both look very young. I'm actually a few years younger than Katie, but we both look younger than our years. So I'm 35, but I probably still get ideas.
Oh, thanks. Now everyone else knows I'm older than 35.
Katie's older than that. I've been doing sort of SaaS sales on and off for about the last 10 years. So it's an interesting world because sometimes we get called an agency at User Testing because we do have sort of support and stuff around it. But really, my role is selling direct to enable teams internally at some of the companies that Katie's already mentioned to do their own testing. But we also obviously have a lot of agencies who contract and support and work with some of those bigger clients. So I started off selling to anyone across Europe because I was the first sort of enterprise salesperson. And slowly over the last couple of years or so, I've moved more towards just working with the biggest customers. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, more global sales with the biggest customers that user testing have.
Yeah, and I think that the SaaS approach to new business and selling software is very, very different. In fact, Adam's going to come on the podcast and talk to me about how they specifically focus on winning these really big clients, especially when they were quite a small business, more of a startup. So I think there's lots that we can learn as agencies from how kind of software tech SaaS kind of businesses sell themselves as well. And Tracey, I feel like I really didn't give you much of a voice there, so I'm coming back to you now because you've done some amazing things at Brooklyn Brothers, and this is a really good way for us to kind of kick things off. You guys, I know, had your best year in sales last year, which has, for lots of us in lots of different ways, been a turbulent year. We also at Street had our best ever financial year last year. But what do you tell us a bit more about the Brooklyn Brothers and how they're unique? And then I'd love if you could kick us off by talking about how you think you've managed to have your best year ever amongst all the madness.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you for the introduction. I think you did a great job of introducing me. I don't think I could have done it better. But yeah, I guess just to introduce the Brooklyn Brothers, we're an earned advertising agency. So we were born on the premise that, you can't buy a customer's attention anymore because there's just so much noise out there. You have to earn people's attention first. And so we take an earned approach to advertising and brand strategy and integrated communication. So it's about earning a place in culture, and our value proposition is helping brands to rise above that noise and earn a place in culture in a meaningful, purposeful way. And it still involves paid, but it's starting with an earned platform and idea. So that's kind of what we do. And having been kind of agency, having been client side, but also large global agencies through to small startups. What was interesting with the Brooklyn Brothers is this kind of modern marketing approach. And that's kind of what attracted me to the agency a couple of years ago. And I think one of the reasons why it's stood us in good stead going into the pandemic. I think for us, I think at a time when marketing needed to be so aligned to the cultural pulse of the nation, of the world, you couldn't just churn out anything because you had to be so in line with that cultural pulse. And with clients' budgets being reduced, they couldn't do TV first ideas. They had to come up with ideas on a more limited budget. And so earned advertising really attracted quite a lot of attention during the pandemic. So we saw our opportunities from 2019 to 2020 and 2021 increased by 300%. But that's also because we didn't have all of our eggs in one basket. We had a end-to-end business development strategy and plan, and a more consultative selling approach, which meant that we weren't reliant on just one part of our kind of plan to deliver. So so I think the propositions stood us in good stead. There are obviously bits that didn't go so well in COVID, like it did for all of us, but but in terms of the leads and the opportunities, it was up by 300%, which was a surprise.
Yeah, and I think it's down to exactly what you say, Tracey. Really, is one, it's understanding the problems that your audience had, so that we know that a lot of them were having budget slashed and needed to think of new ways to approach this. And I think that's something that all of you guys have done really well, is you've really taken time to understand, okay, and look, there's lots of things that our marketing audience need, and we're all talking to marketeers, but if your agency is truly helping them solve one of those kind of larger problems that they have at scale, and certainly within the pandemic, a lot of that has been around money. It's been around, resource, speed. Some client teams have been totally culled, so they need help from agencies, to get them there faster or more efficiently or in a more cost efficient manner. So if you can pull out and really take time to understand the needs of your audience, and then develop not just there's a fine line here, because you've actually got to be able to do that. We speak to lots of agencies, and some of them don't actually naturally have one of these problems that they solve, so they may need to look at how the agency is positioned before we actually look at a strong value proposition, because you've got to be able to do what you say you're going to do. But you guys have all been, Patrick, you've got this fantastic network of people. If people are truly looking for diversity and to work in a different way, then you guys are a fantastic fit, because you've got a diverse network of people across the world that others aren't just going to be able to compete with.
Yeah, I mean, we had a large amount of travel clients actually at the beginning of the pandemic, which obviously was a huge impact for us as they reduced their budgets. But what we were able to do actually with a lot of our clients was help them navigate a really tricky moment. So the production part of our business is a large part of it. And actually understanding the impacts of COVID and the pandemic on how you do production in the UK, yes, but all the way around the world, was a real key area for us in showing value to our clients at a point where they were just basically discussing what were they going to cut and what were they going to keep. So if you can give them certainty, or a greater certainty in a really uncertain situation, I think that was a really powerful play for us. Certainly, obviously, with our existing clients, but also as part of a kind of small part of our new business strategy as well, and being the experts there on the ground. And it links into what Tracey's talking about when you take that a bit further. Is yes, COVID, the pandemic, and what you do on a production level, but actually, what we focused on as well was essentially translating local culture for our clients as well, who, when you look at the last 2 years and the way that global movements have shaped how brands react and how brands need to talk and speak to their customers, the agencies I feel who can help them navigate that, I think, have been successful. And our great strength was always our community. So how do we work with our clients to let them know, okay, if you're going to be taking your brand into Thailand, or you're going to be taking your brand into a culture within the UK, then understanding that through local creators and makers was really, again, super powerful for us.
Yeah, you've got a fantastic network. It's quite incredible, really. So yeah, and all of you guys can work with Patrick as well, by the way.
No, is this the plug bit? Is this like out my book?
Natural sales opportunities.
Well, we do work with brands and agencies and publishers, and not as a sales thing, but that also, the diversification of that was also something that was quite good, and actually a lesson we've taken as a business going forward, and look for ways that we can now diversify ourselves post-pandemic as well. And I think that's really critical, when you pull down into one thing that you are known for to really make a big difference in the pandemic, but then working out, okay, what are the opportunities now? I think it's been really good as well.
It's a really good point though as well. You have to segment your audience, and I think we're all working with marketeers, and it's so hard. I speak to so many agencies, and luckily actually so many brands, and we will dig into some of the brand insights. I know you've got some great brand insights as well, Tracey, haven't you? So we're gonna share what we think the brands want for 2022. But I think we sometimes forget to do what we do for our clients, for ourselves, which is, I guess, why I have a business, because that's what we do for agencies. But I promise you, we do also do it for ourselves. Is you have to think about that, segmenting that audience. And not all of you will have, such a different audience. It's very clear for Patrick. He can work with and through other agencies and go client direct, but you're going to have totally different messaging, because the needs of those audiences are totally different. So when you are leading campaigns, outreach, developing tactics and content, you absolutely have to think about the different audiences. So one thing that I would say, really simple to get yourself set up for 2022, if you haven't segmented your data and your audience, now's a really great time to do that, so that you can plan your content pillars and your messaging to talk to those different audiences. And it might just be that you're going to market to procurement, heads of marketing, and I don't know, Adam, I know that you've seen some changes in your audience, but for instance, user testing used to very heavily, target people in UX and customer experience roles, because that was who they saw in the States with their key audience. Actually, I think you've had some quite big learnings over the last year or two, Adam, and actually it's been in the UK that your audience that actually purchase and make that buying decision is more marketing roles. Am I right in thinking that? Oh, you're on mute.
Classic.
The saying of thanks for doing that, Ad. Saying of 2020 and 21.
That's the top tip. Come off mute. So yeah, I mean, I think we've just seen a huge range of people wanting to get access to customers, because what we basically do is what Patrick was just saying. We have a panel of approaching a couple of million people. Last year 1.4 million people took a test, so it's a very diverse global panel, but it's basically a consumer panel, so it's a general population panel, but it's global. And what that allows you to do is understand that behavior change. So we saw a lot of people last year where traditional UX testing would be around, show me how you'd go through an e-commerce journey. Actually, it moved to insights and analytics teams going, we want to understand how people's shopping behavior is going to change during COVID. And that doesn't involve showing them anything digital. That just involves them speaking to 5 people or 10 people in India and going, how do you feel about what's going on right now in India? And that is a lot more about behavior change than about it's understanding the deep needs of consumers rather than does a website work or not. So I think that opens up a whole nother audience for us, which we're still trying to tap into a lot within marketing. And we do work with a lot of marketeers. We're still very much, UX research and design is our core. But outside that, we've got a really long tail of anyone involved in insights or analytics type roles, consumer experience, anyone who's interested in getting feedback from consumers or customers, which is a very long tail. And that means that the use cases, as you mentioned, and the way you position yourself, I have to position maybe 20 or 30 different personas. So it can be quite difficult challenge, but it's really picking those, making those bets and going, who are the personas who we think we can work with next? And for me at the moment, a lot of success we're seeing is within insights and analytics people who traditionally would have wanted a lot of data and a lot of quant insight, and we're helping them with the more kind of qualitative, deeper insight from end people.
In terms of your approach, Adam, to new business, so obviously, and I'm sure Patrick and Tracey, although you both work with us, so there's going to be some similarities there. There's, we're all different agencies, and I think we kind of pride ourselves on, every client of ours, we have a bespoke approach. But I am super interested in, and actually, we have also worked with user testing. We did an event for you guys, didn't we? Just before pre-pandemic, October 2019.
Yeah, just before, yeah,
which was really successful. We helped them win 5 clients in one event or something. We specifically went for fintech, didn't we? And it was a really great event. We managed to get like CEOs there. It was great. Mega.
There's a great customer story of ours on the post office on the user testing side. Yeah. A customer story now, which I can share because it's public. And you helped us speak to various people at the post office as well. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So nowadays, I know that you guys actually probably did so user testing started a webinar series to, I guess, talk to people mainly at the beginning. I know it was in those UX type roles, and I know that you've got someone that works in your team that only focuses on ABM, and you probably have a much larger, tech companies seem to invest a lot more heavily in their sales than us agencies do in your new business and sales. Can you talk, I know we're not going to be able to cover it all because I'd need just an hour with you, which we're going to do on the podcast, but what the kind of key drive, where do you get your leads from, and what are the most successful ways of the initial piece? I'm not talking about the negotiations or the sales process from the point of conversation, but how do you attract those leads, or how do you start conversations in the first place?
So we did have a marketing machine, which was driven mainly out of the US, which helped us with lead gen. And that was mainly inbound. We had a team of SDRs who would follow up and book those calls in on the back of interest from, I want to have a free trial, or I want to have a conversation with someone about user testing. what happened with the pandemic, and around the same time as we got a team of BDRs, very slight difference, but sales development rep is more inbound, BDR, business development rep, is outbound focused. And so I have a dedicated BDR who works with me and one other person, and sometimes just works only with me, depending on the territories and how things are working. But he basically is responsible for generating all the leads and booking calls in with people. And that is pretty much 100% outbound. So it's very different to, I was used to, in previous roles as well, relying a lot more on inbound. So how do you position yourself for outbound? Well, a lot of it is through familiarity, I think, through saying we're working with your competitors, and also we're working with some of the divisions that, especially in a big account like a Philips, for example, which again, case studies, so I can talk about them, that's on the site, but we work with their digital marketing and e-commerce team, lots and lots, that's a very large team, thousands of people within Philips. So because I'm working with these bigger accounts, it's more about how do you grow an account, and it's a lot easier. My personal kind of learning from the way I worked during the pandemic was it's a lot easier for me to do business with my existing customers than it was to try and do new business, because a lot of the new business I was trying to do, they actually put blocks on. They said, no, we're not onboarding any new suppliers. Even existing sales cycles or POs that were going through got blocked. Everything needed to go up to the CFO to get signed off. So it made new business really hard. Yeah, I could continue to do business with my existing customers by cross-selling and upselling. So I've almost transitioned to about 90% now, cross-sell, upsell, which was probably on its head before the pandemic. So I've basically, through the pandemic, gone from selling mainly new business to mainly selling what some people would consider more of account management, but actually in big organizations, there's a lot of room to grow, I'd say.
Yeah, it's super interesting though, because I think, we all know it's much easier to grow an account. And one of the things that we're doing actually for Street this year, or now, right now, is launching, and we're going to have them on the website, gateway products, because most of our clients, like Tracey and Patrick, work with us on a retainer. Not everyone out there can afford or initially wants to work on a retainer basis. So we're launching products that will enable us to work hopefully with more, or not products, obviously we're a service agency, but we're dressing them up like products so that it's a one thing. So it might be helping an agency with their value proposition. It might be putting on a specific event. There's something that we can get people in the door and then grow them. And I do think we're going to see a lot more of that. Not everyone, we work with lots and lots of agencies, and I've worked in this industry for, the last 12, 13 years, working, in new business at agencies. And actually, those bigger, and I've worked at agencies most of the time where we're looking for 3, 4, 500,000 plus, £1 million plus big digital transformation projects was a big part of my career. They don't come around all the time. You might be nurturing a client for 2, 3, 4 years before they need to do a digital transformation piece. You hopefully have marketed yourself well enough to be on their radar. But if you've got gateway products, if you've got things that can get you in the door so that you can do more of what Adam is talking about and then grow those accounts, that really does help, because they get experience of working with you. If you really are brilliant, if you really are, able to help them, that one project can turn into lots and lots. So it's a mind shift. We talk to clients about this a lot, because most of our clients want those bigger wins, which do come around in the short term often, but often you are having to look at them as more of a long tail piece of work if you've not marketed yourself effectively before. So I think it's definitely something worth thinking about in terms of your strategy, and having those kind of smaller in the door productized offerings so that you can start working with those bigger brands earlier, if that's what you want to do, of course.
I also think, just adding on, that made me think of something like, we often used to work with one key person being our power user in the account. It's a very high risk strategy to have, in that if that person decides to leave the business or gets leaves for whatever reason or is sick, then suddenly your service isn't being used anymore. So the more people you can have relationships with in an account, the more sticky you are, the less risk there is of you losing that business as well.
Love that. So true. Guys, I'm obviously all about answering the questions that matter to you. So if you have any questions for our amazing panel, please do pop them into the chat, or ideally the Q&A, and I will try and answer them for you. What happens usually is you all start asking questions right near the end. So if you can think of any, please send them now so that I have time to get through them all. And yeah, as they come up, just pop them in the Q&A. So Tracey, you guys have quite a special approach, I think, to marketing yourself as a business, and you really respond well to the needs of your audience, and of course, you know, take time to understand what it is that brands really want. I know that you did a bit of interviewing of brands and some of your clients recently. Are there any trends that you have seen coming up for 2022 that you think might be useful for our audience to know about?
Yeah, definitely. So I spoke to a few of my friends, CMO or heads of marketing friends, and I think we do that regularly, because when you need to kind of communicate with prospects and have some form of value exchange in order to be effective, it's really important to have some of those insights. So I mean, a couple of things came out from the conversations that I had. One of them was around the audience, and one of my friends that I spoke to said what they really valued this year is the impact that their marketing has had by having a deeper level of connection with their audience. I guess it comes back to that cultural point earlier, where everybody has had to find that deeper level of ways of engaging with their audience. And she said to me, it's next year for her, it's about data to give purpose, because we're talking a lot about purpose, and there's a lot being written about purpose and marketing. And I just thought that was quite interesting that she's looking at next year with, yes, data. It's always been the year of data for the last 5-10 years, isn't it? But it's data to give purpose. And I thought that was quite interesting. And then somebody else I was speaking to, he was saying that we've seen this also, not just from the person I spoke to, but some of those bigger £1 million pitches, where historically those retainers would have been slightly bigger. And we're seeing a slight shift where some of those retainers are reducing a little bit in favor for a slightly bigger proportion of projects. So that gives the client still their consistent team, but then a bit more flexibility to dial up or scale back according to, gives them that kind of flexibility. So we're seeing a bit of a shift in terms of I guess, their retainer model. And then something else that I think is quite interesting is that historically there's some of those bigger accounts that would have been out of reach for some of those smaller agencies, and somebody said to me, size doesn't matter anymore. And I think a most recent example in the press, when you look at British Airways, for example, I've been through probably about three of those pitches in my career, often 9-month pitch processes, and been successful in previous agencies in winning the BA account. And in order to tick all of the boxes and to have people in all markets across the world and all of the capabilities required to service that, and we've seen recently that Uncommon have an independent agency have won an account that previously had so many of those barriers in place, and they quoted that they wanted the very best. They want the very best agencies to work with them. So I think it's just there's a shift where some of those bigger accounts that were previously not reach for smaller agencies like ourselves are now open, and we're kind of getting involved in those pitch processes. So I think there's a bit of a shift from a retainer, how the scope, what kind of clients are looking for. And I think there's the other thing is that a lot of briefs are coming through saying we don't want TV first ideas. So every brief is almost coming through saying we don't want TV first ideas anymore. So that will be another thing to go through to next year as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? The world has changed so massively, and there was a lot of talk about TV, becoming more important again, of course, because we've all been stuck at home. Yeah, actually, most of the advertisers and the people that we're marketing to still are veering away from that approach, because it does feel a little bit old. Although I do like the Christmas adverts. I think I put a post about this on LinkedIn. You'll have to put in the comments your favorite Christmas ad. I know it is a bit kind of showy offy middle class, but I do really like the Boots one. because it feels a bit spoiled child, doesn't it, where she's like pulling the bag out. But I like the music, and I like that her nan said no, she says this is what Christmas is like or something, then she says back, this is what Christmas smells like. I really need to write that to someone. I don't have a nan anymore though, so not my nan. So you have now done exactly what I've told you all and started asking lots of questions. So Tracey, first one is to you. I'm going to try and do these in order, and I will try and get through them all. What have been your most effective techniques and or tools that you've used in 2021 that have worked well from a prospecting perspective?
From a prospecting perspective, I would say, well, we did do a lot that didn't go quite so well. But the big thing is when we listened to our instinct and took more of a value exchange approach, approaching prospects that are relevant for you, and with those nuggets of interesting insight and value exchange has been definitely where we're starting to see now brands just kind of coming back to us because we're sharing something of value that's earning the right to appear in their inbox. So it's not being about selling. And then the other point connected to that is taking that consultative selling approach to those cold outbound, but also some of those conversations. And then that consultative selling approach actually might end up meaning that because we're thinking about the client, we're not trying to sell ourselves. It actually sometimes means that we're sending it to somewhere else within. So it might not be the Brooklyn Brothers, but it might be somewhere else within our IPG network, because actually the right solution ended up not being us. It's a different type of agency. So that value exchange and that consultative selling approach.
Definitely. It was lovely to for us to pitch to Tracey, because she really gets how, there's not every agency that works in the way that we do. There's lots out there that will push out case studies, and I'm not saying you don't push out case studies, but what Tracey really understood and gets and wanted to do, which is why I guess we were a good fit for the Brooklyn Brothers, is that kind of insights-led, which is why I always talk about solving, not selling, that insights-led approach to helping solve a problem rather than just pushing your own agenda. Now, I'm not saying that at some point you need to explain, I often talk about there being 3 pillars: the insights piece that's going to drag people in, that, helps them answer a problem, something that's keeping them up at night, and you can push that out in lots of ways. Then you want to kind of prove it. So you want a kind of prove it piece, which often is in the form of a case study, but that could be a video case study, a written case study, a short email saying, oh, we actually helped, X brand solve this problem, and this is how we did it. And then of course you want to make it easy, and I've already spoken about this a little bit, for people to be able to buy you. But there's loads and loads of tech platforms out there that can help you with your email outreach, that can help you get all of that data together. If you're interested, just email me afterwards and we can share a list of some of the insights platforms that we use to help people like Tracey with the outreach and that initial piece. But definitely getting your content right is so important. So next question, in terms of source of new biz, I don't know who would like to answer this one first. What would you say your current percentage split is between inbound, outbound, referrals, biz dev, etc.? I mean, that's quite a lot of things to remember off the top of your head, but a rough divvy up would be very interesting from all of you.
I guess inbound to outbound is probably about 50-50. Actually, we're a small agency. We're a small agency, but we have a reputation, I guess, based on that community angle that is a little bit unique. So we do get inbounds for people looking for that. Often people who are looking to solve a particular problem, either they want to go global, they don't know what they want to do in a particular country, or they have a really quick turnaround. So we're in a situation where we're super flexible because of our size and because of the way that we're set up. So that really helps in terms of how we can respond very, very quickly to those clients. So probably around 50-50.
Yeah, that's good. Tracey?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably similar, maybe slightly more on the inbound, because we've really invested in our reputation and letting our work and everything speak for itself, really. So we've really invested in reputation, which has really driven our inbound, and our Agency of the Year awards have all again really helped that inbound. So yeah, we've seen a shift. The 2 years prior to that, the inbound was a lot less. It would have been 20%.
Wow. And Adam, I feel like my guess is going to be that a large percentage of yours is outbound from what you said earlier.
Yeah, for me personally, but if I was looking across the business more widely, it's probably close to 50-50. And I think the learning is that the smaller businesses we see inbound, and the larger ones we tend to do a lot more outbound.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's because the marketing lands very well with, and a lot of kind of online first businesses are much more digital savvy, and UX makes more sense too, whereas those larger, more traditional businesses maybe are still starting to get their head around what this whole UX thing is. And because of that, they might be smaller teams, and we have to do more work to kind of widen the reach within those organizations. So
yeah, and often a longer sales cycle, you have to just work a bit harder on them, I would say, for us. And I always kind of confuse myself in my mind around this, because I feel we outbound our marketing. So if you ignored that we outbound our marketing, then these stats would be very different. But we don't tend to do at Street, we do for our clients. So Tracey and Patrick, we do the marketing outbound, plus we'll take a more kind of sales approach to get the meetings and, you know, to start generating those opportunities. But if I'm talking what we do for Street, and Patrick and Tracey both came to me off the back of coming to these webinars and, you know, listening to some of our content, is we outbound our marketing content quite heavily, which means sales opportunities are inbound. That's not to say we'll always do it like that. We should practice what we preach more for our clients, and next year we probably will really focus in, because we know the kind of agencies that we work best with. So we probably will do more of what we do for our clients in terms of, you know, trying to generate those opportunities a little bit earlier, rather than just waiting for our marketing to do its job. But I think if you can look at all of those things, inbound, outbound, referrals, biz dev, if you've got one that's lower than the other, focus on getting it higher, then it's, you know, the others often, you know, referrals are always going to happen. You can make referrals happen more. You can ask for referrals. You know, there are ways that you can dial that up. If you're not doing inbound and you've got a very small amount of inbound, look at how you can dial up your marketing. If you're not doing much outbounding, you know, dial that up. I think if any of these aren't on your radar, you're not doing well on them, dialing them up, you know, if the others are doing really well already, is, you know, they hopefully will stay the same. So the percentage of your pie is only going to get bigger, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm going to try and get through lots and lots of these questions. Atom, I want to answer your question, but I feel like it's quite a bespoke question, so I might come back to you afterwards if you don't mind. Please, can you share some examples of your key agency marketing investments for 2022? So yeah, where have you invested? Which elements of your marketing strategies have you invested in?
Well, the Streets. We're a small agency, so we don't have a limitless amount of money. Like, our pot is not huge to be doing marketing for ourselves. So actually the Streets was an investment for us. Also, actually, we've taken this year to look a little bit inwardly at the same time. So we are going through a new positioning piece to look at how we move our clients beyond just production, so more into the creative and the strategy up front, which is actually a learning from the last 18 months. And we've actually had a couple of good wins in the last kind of 2 to 3 months that are really kind of looking good for next year in terms of how we can offer our clients, because cross-selling into our existing clients and upselling is, I totally agree, that's where we spend a lot of our focus. So I think we've invested in that. So all the marketing in terms of how we look and how we feel and how we portray ourselves is going to be a big investment. The other thing we've done is invested in the community. So all this year has been about consolidation for us, so that in 2022 we're in a really strong position to go out as verbally and loudly as possible and do what we need to do. So we've invested in the community, I've invested in the team. So actually we've also looked at creative diversity is a huge thing for us. So clients come to us because they can see they can get exactly the right person. So if they want to do a shoot or a campaign that's around like finding a particular person to do it, sports or film or travel or whatever, then we're the best people to come to find those people to do it, and it becomes very culturally aware. So I think investing in diversity has been huge. So actually we've we've increased, so we changed how we recruit internally. So we changed, and we've increased in the last 6 months our Black, Asian and ethnic minority workforce, so teams from 20% to 33% over the last 6 months, which has been a real positive. And that opens up whole new ways to do business, and whole new ways to come up with ideas and work for clients. So I think that's a lot of what we've done is actually internal this year, with the aim of next year going a lot more outward looking.
Yeah, focusing on, I think, and that again, do you know what is really important? I spoke to a client the other day, and I say I very, in fact, really awesome podcast, which I think comes out on Thursday. It's with the head of marketing from Gymbox. We're just so lovely, and also he's going to get me into some cool Gymbox classes in London, which I'm very excited about. But he was saying, don't forget to look at the whole piece. And he's worked for some pretty major brands. He really knows his stuff. Prior to, he worked in the drinks sector prior to being at Gymbox. He's always worked for like really, really cool different brands that he loves. And he was like, look, as a head of marketing, what for me is important is and they work with some quite small agencies. They get some really interesting approaches. And he was like, don't forget to get your house in order. There's so much that you can do from the prospecting point of view, but if they come to your site and it looks crap and you're a website company or you're a design company, he's like, I won't even respond to the email. Whereas if the email was good, plus their website looks good, I'll talk to them. So and it's frustrating for me because we can and we do that for clients. We have helped clients rebrand, develop their website, rewrite content on the website, but not everyone wants to invest in all of that. So I would really say one thing that you can be looking at now: are you talking the right language to the problems that your audience face? Do you look awesome everywhere? He was saying, I'll go and check out their Instagram, their marketing. If they haven't put a blog live for 3 months, I don't want to work with them. I won't even reply to the email. If they haven't, got their website looking great, if they haven't posted on Instagram regularly, you need to, if we're in marketing, you've got to show up and look like you know what you're doing. If any of those elements aren't as good as they could be, then you can't blame your outbounding or the person that's doing your outbounding or the business, in my case, that's doing the outbounding, because you've got to look at it holistically. So I would say, Patrick is totally right. You've got to get your house in order first, because, intelligent CMOs and heads of marketing will be looking at the whole thing and they won't even answer your email if you don't, so you can't just go, oh, we just need leads, we just need to do the outbound. No, because your outbound won't work if the rest of it isn't working. So that is a really good point. Sorry, I spoke a lot there. Tracey, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think similar actually to what Patrick was saying, talent has been an investment. A lot of agencies have switched off the investment around D&I. So our night school program ran again during lockdown. It was a bit tricky running that during lockdown, going from a physical training program that we ran the year before to last year. So that's continued to be a big investment. And then obviously prospecting, the street, reputationally, shifting our focus to more targeting titles and spaces and places where C-suite are reading and engaging content. So we're just kind of shifting the dial a bit on that. And then our influencer and CRM, so a bit more investment in that for next year. And the one thing I want to invest in, which I can't find, is I really am hungry for a data tool. Like we have all of these buying signals, and we're still having to do it manually. We've got all the buying signals that we're then having to validate across other data sources. And there's got to be somebody out there that's going to come up with an AI tool that just pulls all those data sources together to spit out what we need from a prospecting perspective, because that's still so manual. There's some platforms, but they don't all talk to each other. So that's what I want to invest in. But yeah, I want some innovator out there to create it.
Yeah, well, we do have that, by the way, and I'm hoping Katie DLC, who's your campaign success manager, is listening. You get certain amounts, and we follow specific businesses for you. So if any of you are looking for this, by the way, Alf Insights have some really great insights. So we subscribe to all of these on behalf of Street, which means we can follow them for our clients. So Alf and Winmo both do it. Winmo, I would say, actually, that we only use the data insights, the actual data capture we get from Alf. but they only do it so much. So we combine that. So we've got Alf and Winmo, which gives us, those buying triggers, moves, big changes within a business. But we also look on LinkedIn, and we look for it's some really basic stuff that you can do. So here's a bit of a cheat, guys. If you don't want to spend thousands on Alf and Winmo, or on someone like us to do it, then you can also do things like subscribe for job ads. So pretend that you're looking for a job. Just make sure you tell your boss. But you can subscribe. So say that you're looking for a marketing director role, and you can see when they're recruiting, and then within 2 or 3 months there's going to be someone new in post. You can then find them on LinkedIn using Sales Nav, and you can do some nice bespoke outreach. So we do all of those things. Yeah, and I agree, Tracey, that and all of them are good to a certain extent, but none of them look at everything and just give you all of those insights. We do try to share as much as we can. And also in my new platform Tamba, we're doing that, and we're going to be putting every week the top movers and shakers that week and things like that. So yeah, they are out there, but there's a little bit of manual work that has to go on behind them to make them work harder. Gosh, there's so many questions now. See, I told you this always happens. This is a really interesting question from Billy. What would you say some of the most significant pain points of your clients have been throughout 2021? It's been a very weird year across all businesses. What would you say were any common themes that you maybe expect to carry through until 2022?
Well, unfortunately, COVID, as in with the new variant coming through, I can't see how that's not going to impact plans into the new year. And I think helping them navigate that, again, from a very particular production point of view, is going to be critical. And how we can be a partner that comes with solutions rather than problems, and this can't be done or we have to delay. So I think that's going to be critical for us. I think actually also at the same time is going to be for certain industries, how do they open up in a really interesting way in terms of messaging for their audiences, and how do they, I think we saw it a little bit this year, but I think we'll see it even more next year. So what is at the core, I guess, is when do you stop talking about it, and when do you move on to talk about something else which is a bit more hopeful? And I think certain brands are still fighting with that ongoing. So I think that's another thing. So I think messaging is really key for a lot of our clients, and how they present themselves, I think, is something that's going to be more and more important as they break out, certainly from a travel industry perspective. Adam,
anything that you've seen? I know you speak to lots of clients that particularly they're having.
The kind of there's obviously the broader themes which I see on pretty much all the conversations with the enterprise companies I'm working with. So we've talked about some of it already, but on a more digital level, kind of accessibility has been a huge push. So making sure that they're designing everything based on anyone can use it rather than just maybe a certain type of user. So making it as accessible so that anyone with any ability can use things online. And obviously, as we're in a more remote world, that is going to continue. And I think that also plays into the other two things I was thinking about. So B2B has seen a lot of disruption in digital. So there's a lot of talk about digital transformation generally, but if you look at B2B businesses, some of the big telcos and stuff, you couldn't even buy a service from some of them at the beginning of this year, even still. So you're trying to just buy products and services from them, and there's nothing there. So there's a huge amount of agencies and businesses helping to support that disruption and change there. And that also plays into the employee experience as well, which I think sometimes doesn't get looked at. So I've seen a lot more kind of what maybe were fringe use cases in the past for our software now becoming more of a focus. And okay, what about the software and the products and the services and the way we look after our employees, the way we recruit and bring people on? And as COVID isn't going to go away, as Justin was just saying. So reality is you're still going to have to hire people remotely, onboard them remotely, give them new tools to use remotely. How do you do that? How do you train people up? How do you make their lives easier?
That's actually a really interesting, sorry, I can interrupt because you're my brother. But that's actually a really interesting point that all of us as agencies can help people solve. Is there's a massive globally, especially in the UK, I think, recruitment problem. brands, businesses, whatever you want to say, they can't get talented staff. Agencies have loads of talented staff, so you could address the problem by going, look, we know it's really tough, so we can help you in the short term or long term, whilst you're looking to recruit, we've got some amazing people that do this and this. So it is really worth looking at those job ads and who they're recruiting for as well, because that's often a really nice way in. You can look at the roles that they're advertising for that they may not be able to fill, and think about how you as an agency could help them. And I think that's a tactic that we might use for some of our outreach, giving myself ideas here. I know, Tracey, you've already answered some bits on that earlier, so I'm going to skip on to some more of these questions because there's still about 5 open. So this is a really interesting one, and I'm going to kind of wrap 2 questions in here from anonymous attendee and also Martin Oxley. But Martin, you're asking about, you run a research agency, you want to partner with more agencies that will help you broaden our reach and look at closer knit relationships. It looks like you've actually even done some kind of joint marketing with the Brooklyn brothers there. So Tracey, I'll let you check that out afterwards. We'll share the links with you. But partnerships, so important. How can people like Martin, and I think this also goes to the anonymous attendee who said about working for a large brand with segmented business units that don't really talk to each other. And Tracey, you'll do this a lot, and internally as well as potentially with other agencies across the IPG group. And of course, Patrick, you'll do this alongside all of your other agencies that you work with, and Adam, you'll do this with agencies and potentially the businesses that you work within. How do you break down those walls and get some really good partnerships going?
Did you want me to go first?
Go on, Tracey, go for it. Whoever wants to go.
So I think I'll just use a really good example of a brand that contacted me, and they showed me their tool and the benefit of their tool, and they gave us a good offer, and they asked, and they were really clever in building a relationship with me, and then I had that emotional connection to them. So then when they wanted me to open doors to them within IPG, I had the benefit. He'd done a favor for me because it was there was a good value exchange there, because I got to trial it and I got a good offer. And then that emotional connection, I felt compelled and confident to share with my peers and everybody within IPG. So I think that was a really good example that kind of benefited me, and then I personally wanted to be an advocate for them within the network.
Nice. Anyone else got anything to add on? I mean, my key thing with partnerships is exactly what Tracey's saying, is just work on building that, understand the partners that you've got the same audience. And we've done this with podcast sponsors that have come on and sponsored our podcast, and likewise I go and talk on other people's webinars and their podcasts when I know that we've got a shared audience, but there is some kind of value exchange. And we work quite closely with people like the Wow Company, who don't do anything similar to what we do to a certain extent, but they do accountancy for agencies. So, and they've got some really interesting insights. So we look at helping them push their the bench press report that they do, and we help give them content, and they help. It's really the biggest thing is just reaching out and saying, look, we've got a similar audience. I really feel that we could help you by doing X, and you could just be brave. I would say the biggest thing is give value, be brave, make it clear how you're going to be able to help them.
I think for me as well, it's about, don't be tempted to overreach right at the beginning. Because I think sometimes, and I'm talking maybe about agency clients, but also about partnerships as well, I think there's a temptation to go in and say, yeah, we can do everything here immediately in the first 2-3 months. And I think really focusing down on what you are bringing that will have value for them, and sticking to that in the beginning stages, I think is critical, because you get known for that, and then you can start slowly introducing other things that you will do as an agency over time, and grow that relationship and grow through different parts of the business. The other thing that I think is interesting as well is that often you'll get people who are protectionist about you. So sometimes they will say we'll work with an agency and one person will not want to share us around the business. because they have a great opportunity. It becomes competitive within their world that they have this resource or partner or company or brand like us that can do stuff for them. They don't want other people within the agency network to be able to do it. Now, that's really tricky. I think you always have to be open when you go and talk to them about that before you go out and start trying to do other conversations within the network or within the group, because there's no point risking that core relationship for potential new business elsewhere. But I think if you can talk them round and talk about how it can benefit them at the same time, I think that can really help. But that is something that we definitely come up against.
Yeah.
So just adding on to all the points there, that the main thing that in a SaaS world we focus on is kind of building champions. So when we talk about a champion, we talk about someone with influence in the business and somebody who's got that personal win. And I think if you can understand when you're talking to people, I think people buy from people. We're all just trying to, ultimately build rapport and have a good job. While you're doing that, if in the background you can be thinking about, okay, well, what influence does this person have within the organization I'm trying to work with, and what's in it for them? Why are they going to win? And if you can answer both those questions with a positive answer, then you're probably speaking to the right person who can help you grow the relationship. Whereas if they're going, it's not really much in it for me, and I can't really influence the decision makers in the business, then you're probably, they might be a nice person, but they're probably not going to help you grow the relationship. So that's the kind of way I analytically kind of think about growing new business or growing within a existing account.
It's a very good point. You've got to think about how you can help the person as well as how you can help the business. I think often from a marketing perspective, we're pushing out content that's helping the business problem, but actually we're people buying from people. The CMO or the marketing manager or whoever is responsible for delivering that business problem is going to have problems that they need to overcome within their role. So if when you're leading your outreach, you can explain to them how you can help them personally within their job, whether that's helping them build out a business case because they really want to do this, but they can't get it signed off, or it's just helping them get things done at speed, whatever it might be. Think about the problems that you can help the person with, as well as that larger marketing business problems that you'll be pushing out. Now, we only have 2 minutes left. I knew this would happen. We always get really busy at the end. There's so many questions that have been asked that I haven't managed to get to. Tips for getting the whole agency to back your new biz marketing strategy. That's a really tough one. Tracey, I'll share this with all of you guys as well. And I think it's very different whether if you're a small or a large agency. With a larger agency, I did do a fantastic podcast with Martina, who's the head of new biz or new biz director at iCrossing, and they've got this thing called One Marketing Team. It's in the podcast. I'll make sure I share it in my post comms. But yeah, first of all, thank you so much to today's guests. There's so much more that I want to ask you. I always feel like the first half an hour of these sessions start really slow and then suddenly it just explodes. So thank you for bearing with us and giving all your insight, and sharing is caring, sharing things that you probably are quite personal to your success. I think we're all here today to help and learn from each other. So a massive thank you to all of you for being so open, honest and helpful for our lovely audience. I am going to very quickly in the background launch the poll. We've been doing this all year. So if you have got an extra minute or two to bear with me, then please do fill in the poll. We will be sharing the results from the entire year. My lovely panelists, you can also fill in the poll as well. Whilst you're doing that, I hope you have appreciated my lovely, sparkly Christmas decorations. Last year, I feel that I did this a lot better, and I got the dogs dressed up. I had some kind of like Christmas mice going on in the background, and if anyone was here last year, they'll remember I'd been talking about being Paula Yates, and so I had Zig and Zag. I'm not Paula Yates. I think it was because once I had builders outside and I was going to have to go and do the webinar from my bed, which was the only quiet room in the house. But thank you all for sticking with us all this year. We're not doing a webinar in January, so this is the last time you'll see us for a couple of months. We're kicking back off again in February. We've got some really interesting topics that we're going to cover next year, some amazing guests coming up. Of course, if you miss listening listening to my voice, which I'm sure you're all fed up of hearing, but you can go and listen to me on the podcast. We now launch a new pod every single week. We're taking no breaks at all on that. So there's lots of really helpful content over there. And if you have got questions that weren't answered by our lovely panelists today, guys, I will share those questions with you, and we will try and come back to everyone if we didn't answer anything. And there also will be a video of this, which we'll share with you all. But that just leaves me to say, have a fantastic Christmas, a fantastic end of year, get planning for an awesome 2022. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you all hopefully back here again in February. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.